Today, we're in St. Louis, Missouri, talking about how sustainable design and a whole lot of community helped restore one of the nation's oldest African American cemeteries. I'm Mia Quinn, and this is Sustainably Speaking. Today is a big day because we're headed over to the Greenwood Cemetery for the reopening. Tell us how it started.
I remember one day I was in the car with my dad. I was probably about 8 or 9 years of age. I remember driving up St. Louis Avenue with him, and he stopped in front of a cemetery, and he said, "You've got family in that cemetery." Mm-hmm. But fast forward to 2015, July, we're watching the news early in the morning. There was a gentleman on camera complaining about the conditions of the cemetery. I said, I bet you that's that same cemetery my dad was telling me about.
Greenwood was formed in 1874, and it was the first non-sectarian cemetery for African Americans post-Civil War. With that, we have notables such as Harriet Scott, the wife of Dred Scott, who went before the Supreme Court and lost her case in 1857. We also have other Freedom Suit petitioners that are buried there. Greenwood has over 5,000 people that lived during the time of enslavement.
It was like somebody tapped me on the shoulder and say, this is it.
This is where you're supposed to be.
So I decided I was going to go out there. I got there first thing that morning. I was the first one there. Got out of my car, and I just looked straight up in the air because the growth was easily 15 to 20 feet tall right off the street. And I said, oh, my God. Well, every spring we would be faced with our roads would wash out due to the heavy rains. It made the cemetery totally impassable, at least the bottom part of the cemetery. And I remember one day I was cutting near there, and a car pulls up and wanted to go down the hill but couldn't because of the conditions of the road. And next thing I know, this lady gets out of her car, and she's got a walker. Oh, and she's walking down the hill, dodging the ruts, to see her loved one, which was at the bottom of the hill. And I was so hurt, that this is where we were. So after she went down and came back, I went over and I talked to her and I apologized. And I said, we're working on this. This is going to change. You shouldn't have to do that again.
Could you even see any graves?
Oh, you couldn't see a single stone on the property at all, anywhere. So later that morning, a few people showed up, and then a few more. I guess we wound up with about somewhere between 15 to 20 people that day. And we agreed that every Saturday we were going to try to make a difference. So I was excited about that. And but that went from every Saturday to every other Saturday to whenever we can get together. So I told Shelley, I said, you know what? I think I'm going to go ahead and retire and devote my time and attention to restoring the cemetery. And she supported that decision. And it was at that point I was just committed. I had heard from my dad that we had family in there, but I really had no information, about which family members and, anything. But after we had taken it on, I was going through the house, my birth house. Both parents had passed on. And I ran across a Bible. And in the Bible, there was a stack of funeral burial cards. And I started looking at these cards in Greenwood Cemetery, and found out I had great-grandparents, grandparents, all sorts of aunts and uncles buried in that cemetery. So it was at that point it went from something we probably should try to do to something I've got to complete. I've got to finish. So this is how Shelley and I spend our retirement, restoring the cemetery. Wasn't exactly what I had planned, but here I am, and I'm enjoying every minute of it for the most part.
You reach out to these engineers, and then how did this brought in Forest and Engineers Without Borders?
Well, after I reached out to CDI, they reached out to Engineers Without Borders. I got the ball rolling, but I had enough sense to get out of the way and let the experts take over and do their thing.
And for us, that's when you come in.
Rainwater, seasonally will just run off. And if you look at the road, it just goes downhill quite a bit and then it turns. And so there's areas that were just massive grooves, cutting the road. And so you need a surface that will basically help manage the flow of water away from the surface and then through. I remember seeing the photos of the road at the time, and I felt like you had already done years and years of cleanup, and the place was already welcoming, but it needed to become accessible. And so there was a very clear need and a way we could help. An engineering firm that's already there and involved and ready to, raise their hand and be the local technical, partner. So it was a no-brainer for us. There's also the fact that the American plastic makers and ACC, American Chemistry Council, were involved, and that there was an idea of using semi-permeable, paving stones, and so there was an innovative product idea also behind it that makes it an interesting engineering project. So I think all of these components is what really brought the team together. And so for us, our role then was to find local volunteers who would be involved and willing to spend a little bit of time to lend a hand, to do the study, to figure out exactly the scope of the work, and then help the team execute.
So recycled materials, permeable pavers, that's what we're talking about, was kind of used to rebuild this road. Boris, stormwater runoff and erosion were major challenges. Break down some of the sustainable materials used in the project and how they're working to preserve Greenwood for future generations.
Ultimately, getting the road to last is a matter of managing the water flow. And so that that paving stone is doing the job really properly. And if you look at it now, we stood on the road yesterday and you see the paving stones, and in between there's little gravel grooves, right? So it's designed in a way that's going to manage the water. I think, Raphael, you have a great story on, in the early days of cleaning up the cemetery, cutting the trees, sort of clearing the place, but you also said it had become a dumping ground, and so found hundreds of tires. Do you want to tell that story?
Yeah, we had a cleanup day, I guess it was a couple of years ago, and some of the community partners came together and provided trailers to haul away trash and dumpings and what have you. And there was one section where we pulled, I believe it was 65 tires out of that had been dumped in the cemetery.
In the cemetery.
In the cemetery.
Yeah.
The way the cemetery is configured, we have 3 or 4 streets that dead end right at the cemetery. Cemetery sits down below, so you just throw the trash down there or roll tires down there and auto parts. And it's really rewarding when I hear that these pavers are made from recycled tires, and I'm wondering, did I have something to do with this one? Or what have
Truly
you,
circular.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Circle of life here, in action. But it's a great thing that's happening.
Shelley, what have you heard from, are you starting to hear from families that now can access the cemetery again?
Yes, we are. We're getting calls from people from all around wanting to come and visit to see where their loved ones are buried. But they also talk about the road and, to sort of let them know that the road is completed is wonderful news for them. So it's going to be great to be able to drive or walk someone down that road to where their loved ones are.
What does it really mean to you all, to these families, to people?
Well, Greenwood had gotten to a state where it was no longer accessible. We didn't even know the roads existed. And so people would often drive by and they would say, well, I would just blow a kiss to my mom in that direction because we could not access the cemetery. So now...
Or they would toss a bouquet of flowers.
Really? Wow. Wow. But now, here we are restoring the cemetery.
And not only that, we now have this beautiful road that's taking care of a major problem. And I think they feel cared about. They feel that they matter. Yeah. The community is taking, I think, great pride in what's going on at Greenwood. We're not just there for a couple of months or whatever. We're there. We're committed, and they see it.
Greenwood is just under 32 acres, and there's over 50,000 people buried in that cemetery. Initially, it was so bad. I remember reading a review, like a Yelp type review, and one lady said that I would not bury my dog in Greenwood Cemetery.
It was just that bad.
And that has stuck with me, for these 10 years that I've been doing this. And I always hope that she's still around and maybe will come back and take a look and see the progress, that we have made.
Yeah. You've helped so many families reconnect with their loved ones. Are there any good stories that really stick with you, that stand out?
I posted pictures of the progress on our social media. A lady reached out saying, "Are you to Section R?" And man, we're never going to get there, not in this lifetime. But as he continued to work every day in 100-degree temp, they were just eating that elephant one bite at a time, and I was able to post that progress. And this lady shot me a note saying, "I'm coming to St. Louis." She came, and I said, "Now this is still a little rough back here, but I can take you to where she is." She went on to tell me that she had lost her mother at the age of 3. I was able to take her to where her mother is.
What would you all give advice-wise to another community? I mean, gosh, you've got 10 years under your belt here. What advice would you give to another community trying to restore a forgotten space?
Actually, people do contact us now that are trying to restore cemeteries. They're in the same situation. It was abandoned. And so we tell them that we formed a 501c3 organization. That has helped us as far as people feeling comfortable giving their donations to us because we're accountable. But to stay committed, and that over time, they're going to see change.
And have a strong marriage and a strong partner who will support you.
We do have that.
For me, in hearing the story that Raphael and Shelley are telling, there's the cleanup. Yes, there's the road, but there's also hundreds and even potentially thousands of people that have been involved over 10 years to spend a day, a half day. And so really the project is also the strength of the community, right? It's a momentum. They started, they cleared up the path, and people have been following that path. I feel very grateful that Engineers Without Borders USA was, in a small way, with a few volunteers, part of that story and able to walk that same path.
We do feel that way. We do. One thing I do want to say, though, is we really thank you for stepping forward to help us. And you've given us the momentum to continue this path, this journey that we're on. And Engineers Without Borders is just a tremendous organization.
What role do cemeteries play in keeping the stories of Black families alive?
Well, I have the fortune to be able to talk about Greenwood's history in different settings, be it to schools that come out to volunteer, or I'll do a presentation at our history museum, the Missouri History Museum.
Wow.
So if you can imagine the stories, the struggles, the triumphs, there's so many stories to tell about the various individuals.
Yeah, plus we're on the National Register of Historic Places.
We're also on the National Underground Railroad Network to Freedom.
Don't
For those who
necessarily.
don't know, there is national recognition of organizations or places throughout our country that helped during pre-Civil War through the Underground Network, people reaching freedom. And so this organization goes around the country recognizing various sites, various people who helped in those endeavors. Here in St. Louis, we have several sites now that are on the list of the Network to Freedom, and Greenwood is now one of them. And when I did the application, I focused on at least 3 people. Harriet Scott, the wife of Dred Scott, who went before the Supreme Court and ultimately lost their case, but they were freed on the steps of the St. Louis courthouse. Charlton Tandy, who was a civil rights activist in the late 1800s, he and his family helped people through the Underground Railroad system. And then when he moved to St. Louis, he continued to fight for equal rights for African Americans. And also Lucy Delaney, who was, she went for her freedom in 1842 at the age of 12, and she won her freedom through the court system, through the petition in 1844. And she went on to become a Masonic founder and just a woman who really focused all of her energies to helping others to achieve a better life. And those 3 people are just a few of what I get to talk about. And so when we think of African American stories and histories, it is so important that we stay relevant, even if it's just in our own circles, but throughout the world. There's so much to be told.
What haven't we addressed that you all want to make sure we talk about?
Every time I post something, I love to talk about my village.
Yes.
You know, I truly have a village, and I didn't originally. You know, I used to be out there almost in tears sometimes, just trying to deal with
The different setbacks that we would have,
but I can make a phone call now, beyond housing. Hey, I need some help. Okay, we'll be there. So we're blessed.
Yeah.
Got a long way to go, but we're blessed, and hopefully, with this project, we'll be able to build upon that. Maybe somebody will say, "Hey, that's great. Let's get on board, and we can outdo them." Let's have a little competition, maybe between folks
I think that we've just really developed friendships. Like you said,
friendships.
You feel it's a family of people, and oftentimes, especially with the members of the Mormon community, the kids that have come out in these years, we've kept up with them. Some that have gone on into the military are married and started their families. We get all those notices now.
Oh, wow.
And not just through Facebook or things like that. They send us notes saying, this is what's happening to me now, and this is where we are. And
I've got numerous.
So special.
I've got numerous. Hey, can I use you as a reference for this job? And I said, absolutely. One lady called me and was asked about a guy named Dan, and I said, I don't care what type of opening you've got, hire him. Whatever it is, hire him.
This is a lot of special
He'll be an
people.
asset.
it is.
This is a lot of special people led by you all coming together for a very special mission. And thank you for talking to us and being able to share this story and everything that you've done to make this all happen.
Thank you so much.
Stories like this remind us how much is possible when people come together. And I know how much a difference this is going to make for people in this community for many years to come. I'll see you next time on Sustainably Speaking.